Good afternoon and welcome to the first Public Works meeting of the new year. I'm Brenda Fincher, I chair the committee, and I have with me Councilmember Marley Larimer and Councilmember Seth Winder-Core. I also have the Director of the Department, Chad Barron, and Cheryl V. Seth is taking everything down that we say and keeping all for the good of history. So, any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
No changes to the agenda, then we are ready for a motion.
Chair, I move to accept the, are we doing minutes or agenda? Sorry. Minutes. I move to accept the minutes dated December 5th, 2022.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
And now we are ready for the 2023 Railroad Quiet Zone BNSF Railroad Agreements with Toby Hallock.
Hi, thank you for having me. Happy New Year. I'm Toby Hallock, Design Engineer 3 with Public Works Engineering, here to present on the Railroad Quiet Zone and two agreements that we have with the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway, or BNSF for short. The first agreement is a construction and maintenance agreement, and the second agreement is a land lease agreement with both with the BN. Last month, as the committee will recall, there was an approval for $2.95 million from the Washington State Department of Commerce for improvements towards this quiet zone project and for safety improvements along the railroad tracks. And as I mentioned at that meeting, the funding for that expires June 30th. So we need to move fast with this project. As you'll recall, the quiet zone will allow trains to go through the downtown core without blasting their horns at each intersection, helping to improve the quality of life for those living in Kent and working in Kent and people traveling through Kent. There's a number of improvements at each crossing that need to occur prior to getting that quiet zone, and that's what this project is attempting to do, get as many of those improvements as we can with our funding and the what we can do in this short time frame. Some of these improvements include signs, channelization improvements, medians for vehicles, and some improvements for pedestrians include sidewalk improvements at the crossings and fencing to reduce the number of trespassers in places they shouldn't be going. As I mentioned last time, there are 13 crossings between 212th and 259th through Kent. 5 of them are on the Union Pacific, shown in red on this slide. There are 8 crossings on the BN tracks, which is shown in blue, and the crossings are highlighted in the blue circles. These agreements that I brought before you are just for the BN crossings. The agreements, the draft agreements in the package, again, are just for the BN for the construction and maintenance of improvements and the fencing improvements for the land lease for the fencing improvements. The 8 crossings on the BN, starting up at the north end, are south to 12th Street, moving down to James Street, then Smith Street, Meeker Street, Gow Street, Titus Street, Willis Street, and South 259th Street down to the south end near Horseshoe Bend. Then there will be fencing installed between some of these crossings, and then additional trespass fencing north of James Street along First Avenue North, and then south of Willis Street along First Avenue South and Railroad Avenue South. Here's a picture of a typical crossing. This is at Gow Street, and you can see the First Avenue sign, but at the BN tracks. Some of the improvements that will happen at this location in particular, the yellow curbs and pylons will be removed and replaced with yellow concrete curb to prevent people from driving over there. Those yellow pylons get hit frequently and really don't stop people if they want to try to do a U-turn, which is what we're really trying to prevent with this and is a requirement of the quiet zone. Other improvements are going to be additional signage, improved sidewalks, and improved adherence to ADA requirements. On the left side of the picture, you can see Rosebud Park. That's right over here, just a little bit of that park. That park is owned by the railroad and leased to our Parks Department to maintain. We will put additional fencing between the park and the tracks to prevent people from just wandering through the park and onto the tracks. So it'll force people to go to the crossings where it is safer. Again, the draft construction and maintenance agreement will allow us to build and maintain these improvements that we're planning to construct, as a lot of them are on the BN property. The agreement that we have with Commerce requires that the city maintain these improvements for a minimum of 10 years. So as these are almost city right-of-way properties, the city wants to maintain them, so we don't see any problem with that in the agreement. The no trespass fencing will be placed north of James Street on along First Avenue North, shown on the left, and then south of Willis Street, both on First Avenue and along Railroad Avenue. These are two areas that are highly trafficked with trespassers, and there are lots of encroachments from vehicles and people dumping debris along the tracks, and we're working to try to reduce both the trespassers and encroachments along these areas. The draft land lease agreement in your packet will allow us to construct and maintain these fences as similar to the other agreement, but this is specific to a lease, so these fences will be here as long as we can maintain them, and it'll be our cost to maintain, but we are working with the railroad so we don't have to actually pay for the lease. And the land that we're putting these fences on is also owned by the BNSF Railroad. So once again, due to our short time frame for this project, we will need to design and build this project as soon as we can. We're working to get the design out to bid in a couple weeks. The fencing part of the project actually has already gone out to bid, and we're opening bids on that project tomorrow. I wanted to reiterate that the agreements in the package are draft, and we are working with our law department to negotiate the final terms and conditions, and that is stated in the motion so that we have that authority to work the language in to make sure it meets what we need for our projects, and the railroad will agree to that as well. With this committee's approval, we can make sure that this project's timeline doesn't get derailed.
Oh,
I love that.
Thank you for consideration.
So, and as far as the chain link fence, this is the upgraded chain link, not the regular
Correct,
gray
yes.
stuff that we see out there.
At these locations, we will have no-cut chain link, so it'll be vinyl coated, and the diamond patterns of the fencing will be a lot smaller, so it'll be harder to get cutters in to cut through the fence.
Or to climb over.
Or to climb over, yeah. It'll be a half-inch diameter, or half-inch diamond pattern rather than 2 inches of standard chain link.
Nice.
So you won't be able to get your toes in or your feet in to be able to climb it. You might be able to squeeze your fingers in, but only a few mountain climbers might be able to do that.
A lot of upper body strength.
Okay, do either of you have any questions or comments?
No, not for me.
No, Councilmember Higgins will be watching tomorrow, or former Councilmember Higgins will be watching tomorrow for the full report, so looking forward to that also. Anything else? Then we are ready for a motion.
Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to sign all necessary agreements with Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway related to the construction and maintenance of the 2023 Railroad Quiet Zone project, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney and public works director.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So we have passed on to council that the mayor will be able to sign all the necessary agreements so that we can make these upcoming requirements, meet the upcoming requirements so that we can get this money spent in time and keep the project moving on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now it is time for Steve Lincoln to tell us about the Meeker Street Bridge Consultant Agreement. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Fincher. Chair Fincher, members of the committee, good evening. I am Steve Lincoln. I am an engineer with Public Works Engineering Design, and I am here tonight to discuss a consultant service agreement for the Meeker Street Bridge repainting and deck repair project. The Meeker Street Bridge crosses the Green River in central Kent, and currently will require a full repaint of its structural steel members as well as minor structural repair work. In addition to this, the bridge deck is going to require a structural overlay. Illustrating the need for this work, you can see in the picture on the left that the bridge deck has begun to crack and spall. It is revealing the bridge deck's reinforcing steel as well as some of the bridge's expansion seals. One thing that just to note in the picture on the right showing the corrosion on the bridge's structural steel members, there is a bit of somewhat more solid, brighter red coloration. That is a spot repaint conducted by city operations staff in the recent past. Just wanted to call that out for clarification. Our goal for this project is to have it under construction this summer. There's also a considerable amount of traffic crossing the Meeker Street Bridge. To accommodate this during construction, we're going to be engaging in a significant public outreach effort and notification process to ensure that the public is well aware of the upcoming bridge closure or partial closure and aware of all the detour routes that will both minimize public impact and expedite the construction process. To support this work effort, the city has obtained approximately $4.5 million in grants through 2 federal grant funds. To accomplish this work, we will need the services of a consultant specializing in bridge restoration, hazardous material abatement, and environmental permitting. Per our grant requirements, we were required to engage in a request for qualifications process, which we conducted in October last year. Through a review of the submitted statements of qualifications and several in-person interviews with candidate consultants, we made the determinations that TranTech Engineering LLC was the most qualified consultant to perform this work. Following our initial rounds of negotiations with TranTech, we have for your consideration an agreement that will cover the design and permitting support elements of the project. We recommend that you authorize the mayor to sign this consultant services agreement with TranTech for this project, and we thank you for your continued support of our work and mission in Public Works.
Welcome. Any comments or questions?
I do have a question on the construction time frame and the need for the detours. Do we have an idea? Is this a 4-week project, 6-week project? Do we know about how long traffic might be disrupted?
It will be dependent upon which type of closure, full or partial, we engage in for the project. We're going to be discussing it further as we go into design. One approach would be to do a full closure of the bridge, which would shorten the work period, but obviously have a full closure. The other possibility is an alternating single-lane closure that basically switches side of the bridge about halfway through. This will take longer, and it will have possible congestion risks inherent in it. But again, this is something we're going to discuss, possibly get public input on. But basically, we want to go with the best approach that minimizes impact to the traveling public and best serves the interests of the city.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And we will be doing plenty of public notification and reminding people that we have both veterans and 517 as alternate ways to be able to get up the hill. Did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, just briefly, too, we also have plenty of time to talk about that. This will be under construction in 2024. We'll start the design here in 23, but under construction next summer.
Gotcha.
Being a bit ambitious, but.
This is just design.
Okay.
We are ready for a motion.
Great, okay. Chair, I move to approve the consultant services agreement with TranTech Engineering LLC in the amount not to exceed $352,519 for the Green River Bridge repaint and deck resurfacing project, and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Public Works Director and City Attorney.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve this grant with TranTech Engineering. All in favor?
Aye.
It is passed and will be moved on to the council so that hopefully we'll get that design done and finally get that bridge painted. And all of our permits will be in order beforehand to get that done. Thank you very much. And now we have Tony Donati, who's going to tell us about King County Waste Reduction and Recycling Grant Agreements.
Hello, Happy New Year. Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me this opportunity this evening to speak to you all about accepting our newest grant, which is the Waste Reduction and Recycling Grant through King County. My name is Tony Donati. I'm the Conservation Coordinator here in the Public Works Department. This is a 2-year grant which runs through 2023 and 2024 and is $178,189 with no match. Most of this grant primarily funds our residential recycling events, which we hold each year, and allows residents to participate at no cost. We like to have no user fees as an incentive for people to participate, and provides equal opportunity for everyone as well. On the screen, you can see some of our upcoming events. The first one is our large event, which is March 4th, Saturday, March 4th. And we also are finalizing our mini event dates. However, we don't have those dates yet, but we are working with the Kent Library to create a mini event on Friday, April 21st as part of their Earth Day weekend. So that should be pretty good. Yeah. Also, what's really nice coming up too, and we always hold it every May and September, are our popular Team Up to Clean Up events. So those, more to come on those, and those are also really popular in order to get litter off our streets, trails, sidewalks, neighborhoods, etc. What's really nice about this grant is that it affords us the flexibility to use the funds how we see fit. The remaining portion of the grant can go towards outreach and education for both residents and staff, translation services for our event brochure, disposal costs for hard-to-recycle items, as well as items and services that promote waste reduction and recycling. Additionally, we'll be using a lot of this money too to hire a recycling consultant to staff and host the day of operations for the recycling events. So with that, I'll take any questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Well, I am certainly glad that these events happen. I know that whenever I've gone, there are plenty of people out there, so it's good for Kent, good for our environment. Thank you. And that we are ready.
Chair, I move to accept the 2023-2024 Waste Reduction and Recycling Grant from the King County Solid Waste Division in the amount of $178,189. Authorize the mayor to establish a budget for expenditure of the funds and sign the agreement with King County subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Public Works Director and City Attorney.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. So we will move that grant acceptance on to, from the grant acceptance from King County Solid Waste, $178,189 on to full council.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And we also now have Mike Mactutis with the Water Resource Inventory, or WRIA 9, Notice of Intent to Apply for Grants.
Thank you. Good evening, Committee Chair Fincher, committee members. This is an information-only item about, as it says, a notice of intent to apply for a grant that I'm going to be talking through a little bit. So as you've heard about the Lower Russell Levee project, which is just finishing up, which is about 1.4 miles of restoration, along with a
recreation and flood protection. This is the area just downstream of it, which is known as the Boeing levee, named because of the Boeing Space Center, which has been in there since the early 1960s, from South 212th Street all the way up to the South 200th Street Bridge. So as the slide says, 0.8 miles of river. So it's a long stretch of river. It used to have Russell Road right at the top of its banks. In about the year 2000, the road was moved back when Boeing started selling off and developing some of the property. 200 feet of the river bank there was dedicated to the city, so it is city owned. And then the Green River Flood Control District at that time took the levee and moved it to the back of that 200 feet. So this was included in the 2021 Salmon Habitat Plan as a future project. It was a mid-level priority. The first step would be take a look at what can we do in here, look at a feasibility study, what kind of alternatives. And we have looked at this stretch of river in the past. And so we'll take another look at what we can do as far as salmon habitat balanced with the recreation. So we'll have the Green River Trail remaining up along the levee and some secondary trails intermixed with some of the salmon habitat as a potential. And looking at alcoves, so a lot of potential excavation, habitat benches, wood structures for fish, lookouts, and primary and secondary trails. So there's a lot of potential in this. And I'll have a couple of pictures of what's out there right now. And you can see the very steep bank covered in blackberries. These are the kind on both sides of the river. The Boeing levee is on the right side of the picture. So there's just a few trees, but what we need in there is a lot of shade to try and cool down the water. We need the fish habitat. We need it more of a shallow bench so that it doesn't just completely slough off because it's so steep. And then on this picture, looking in a different direction, you can see there's still some existing utilities from where the road used to be, and you can see where the levee is now at the very far end of the 200 feet. So there's a lot of space to work with, and a lot of potential for making this a much better place for the fish and for the people. So the grant that we're planning to put in the notice of intent, and it is due this Wednesday, is the Salmon Recovery Funding Board. So it's a state grant, which would have to be funded through the state budget, which is the process is just starting now. And the annual allocation that goes to the Green River watershed, the WRIA 9 watershed, is $255,319, and that would be the amount that we would file for a notice of intent to apply for the grant. So the schedule on that as January 11th, so this Wednesday is the notice of intent deadline. The application comes in about 2 months, and it's a pretty hefty application going through the state process, so we'll be working on that over the next couple of months. And then we go through a review for about a month, so there will be a field trip, there will be a presentation to the review team, and then they provide their recommendation on April 19th, they will make the recommendation to the WRIA 9 Forum, which will be meeting on May 11th, and it will actually be the first meeting of the WRIA 9 Forum here in Kent. So we will be having that right in these council chambers on May 11th. So that's the process, and then the state budget process will be going through its normal cycle, which will be ending up by mid-year. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
First meeting ever?
First meeting in Kent.
Oh, but I mean first meeting that Kent has ever...
Kent has hosted,
oh.
Yes.
Questions or comments? Well, thank you very much. And
I have a question, John.
Oh, go right ahead.
Mike, how likely are we to get this grant just from talking?
Very likely.
Okay, thank you.
I would just like to give an extra pat on the back to our Public Works Department, because everything mentioned tonight, as often in our meetings, was either partially or fully paid for by grants. And so that means that we have budgets, but you guys, we don't meet those budgets or be able to get the amount of work done that we do accomplish without those grants. And so thanks to the wonderful team that we have.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.